Good morning, or I guess it's good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you. This is an informal sort of town hall, and one of the reasons that we decided to do this is because there are some people that would like to speak. My name is Rebecca Ward, and I would like to introduce Mr. John Wanga.
They're turning down the music.
My name is John Longden. I live at 2914.
Can't hear you.
Is it working?
No.
How do you turn this thing off? Well, actually, I can talk loud. I had my inside wife voice going there for a while, but I can talk loud. My concern about this whole issue is we seem to be headed down a path that is not what I consider to be a good direction for this association. The supposed meeting today that has been canceled was to select an engineer to come up with some drawings that we find that we now need as a result of the, what I would call, botched erosion program that came by months ago. For starters, we seem to be avoiding practices that are in place to prevent bad things from happening. We have rules, we have laws, and we seem not to be willing to follow those. In the Browns hauling situation, a committee was formed. That committee was allowed to determine the problem, come up with a solution, and even interview potential vendors. Supposedly there were 3 competitive bids that were made for this project. Subsequently, I find out that that's not true. 2 of the bids that are submitted, and by the way, I found this out by asking for a records request from the management. I got a single sheet of paper with the 2 quote-unquote bids on it. That neither one of those bids was signed or dated, which I don't know how you can call them bids if they're not signed or dated. So in effect, what happened is the committee basically pointed the board toward a preferred vendor of their choosing. The end result of that is so far we have spent $53,000 of the association's money for a project that some people say won't work and was not properly permitted. Even if we hire an engineer to come up with drawings and get the permits, we have no idea what the cost will be to go forward on this particular project. But we're charging down that road anyway. Part of the problem is the current president of the board has decided that she has no confidence in First Services, so she has basically broken the contract that we have with them. The contract that the association signed with First Services says that they will be involved in all bids for maintenance for this facility. They were not only not involved, they were specifically told not to get involved. So what we've done is, in addition to not, and First Services, by the way, is a nationwide company that should be more qualified than a couple of volunteers to come up with appropriate vendors for anything we need to have done. Their expertise was ignored. Okay? And it's going to be ignored again in this bid for an engineer. As of this morning, I think, Rebecca, they had 2 people. The reason they only have 2 people, because once again, they haven't asked First Services if they could find and vet 3 good candidates to do this.
The bids aren't apples to apples either. It's very difficult to read and compare them.
Point is, we've had 2 cases so far where we kind of decided that we don't need to follow the rules, we'll just do it the way we choose to do it. And unfortunately, there are several board members that are willing to follow along with that line of thinking. Finally, a motion was made and a vote taken at the last open board meeting to eliminate our contract, terminate our contract with First Services. I don't even believe that was handled properly. According to Robert's rules, items are supposed to be added to the agenda at the start of the meeting. You're not supposed to decide in the middle of a meeting that will spring something on the members. Okay? The reason you have agendas that are published before the meeting is so that interested members of the association can come to meetings where there are issues that they feel might interest them. If you don't tell anybody it's going to be on the agenda, then they have no way of coming down here and finding out whether or not the issue will affect them. That's why it's not supposed to be a surprise. Okay. So in my mind, what we've done is we've got a board that we have allowed to basically break the rules and run the organization the way they see fit. And that is, I think that's incorrect, and I'm hoping that enough people in the community figure out what's going on and decide to try to do something about it. That's my pitch. Anybody else that wants to say something?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead. Come on up here. This is an open meeting, unlike some.
Unlike some. Okay. I just want to address this, what this meeting was originally supposed to be about, was this selection of an engineer. Well, can you hear me, by the way? I have a cold, so
Can we have your name, please?
I'm speaking with. Oh, I'm sorry, Rod Danner, 6661 Fairmont Street. If they're going out and soliciting bids for an engineer, they don't even know right now what it is that we need. Because on the 6th of January, there's a meeting with the DEP. And no question about it, it's an enforcement meeting. And they need to know, after that meeting, what we're going to need. They're going to need an engineer to design a system. Because this obviously is inadequate and only parts of it were permitted to begin with. I think they have some cobbled up drawings that Rhodes Inc. gave them that they're calling an ABC. Well, that ABC, as-built certification, for those of you who don't know, was never given to DEP. It was never given to the county. So we have 2 different agencies that regulate this that we have to deal with. And so if they do move forward, which they will probably do, they seem to just go whichever way they want to go, then they need to take that engineer to that meeting with them so that they can understand what it is that's going to be required. And then the other factor involved is, I don't know exactly what work has been done down there, but if there are wetland impacts, that's going to need restoration work. And there can be penalties assessed for all of this, for the unpermitted construction, for lack of an ABC originally. So they need to find out what it is they're actually going to have this person furnish before they go looking for bids. That's all I want to say. And I do want to say I appreciate Jan and Rebecca showing up for this meeting that was canceled at the last minute. And thank you very much. They need to pursue, if they're going to pursue this, there is going to have to be pursued, no doubt about it, because the damage has to be repaired, and we have to have a plan that's accepted by both the county and DEP. So I don't think we should be throwing money at it already until we find out what's going to be required. And they meet with the stormwater and wetlands folks at DEP. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I don't know if I can holler that loud or not, but I will try since there's no button on there. My name's Billy Neal. I am not an elected official of the association, but I've been a property owner here for more than 25 years, and I've been an active member involved in committee work for the past 12 years. Earlier this year, I was appointed to a committee, the election committee, as a result of a couple of our, and let me step back a minute. I was an avid supporter of all the members that were elected to the board of directors at the annual election in July. I went out physically through my communication network and encouraged people that I know, based on my experience, my personal interviews that I had with every candidate running, on which of those I felt would be the best. And everyone that was elected, to include the 3 that resigned, I endorsed them, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't call it endorsement. The 9 or 10 candidates that we have, I felt they were the best and they would perform the best for our community. It turned out, there's no doubt in my mind, the main reason it turned out the way that it did was the way that that board was formed. From the start, with the election or the appointments among themselves of who gets to run the show and who's just along for the ride. I endorse that also. So I'll be the first to admit I made a mistake. And I apologize to anybody that I provided information to that influenced their decision and their vote and their support, because it was a mistake on my part. Additionally, I volunteered to serve and chair on the, I think we called it the, wasn't handicap, it was a special needs committee accommodations or something like that, to address our facility to bring it into compliance with current day standards. Was also, as I said, on the nominating committee. I did not want to be on the nominating committee. I told the board president, Alex Crawford, why I didn't want to be on it, because of past committee work where I'd spent numerous hours along with a lot of the homeowners on doing stuff for the board, and then you present it to the board. Prime example was the stormwater work done back in 2005 and 2006. Information presented to the board, and they went nowhere with it. The pool dome committee that we have, I served on that, an awful lot of hours and stuff, and what we do, we did nothing. But waste a lot of time and energy from the members. Because of Alex Crawford and Melinda Robertson's, who was, I call her a henchman of Alex Crawford at the time period, and this is me personally telling my story on what I know about what's happening up to date. And I'm sorry if I bore you, but I want you to know as many of the facts as I can share with you. That was on the nominating committee along with Skip Hardenberg and Dan Ramsey. And we interviewed the candidates that they came through. Jan Frink, who's sitting here, was one of the candidates, and Bill Crouch, who was another one that was actually recommended by that committee. The president and Linda Robinson sat in on each one of those interviews, and then after the interviews were over, before the board even made their decision, these two communicated amongst themselves, along with which a post was on the Yahoo forum for Holly by the Sea about, well, we don't like those, you know, we got to get some other people or something. And I shared that. And at the board meeting, I believe they had a regular board meeting in September, when the nominating committee made their recommendation, one person fought the support of that committee to the board members at that time period to accept the nominations and the work done by that committee. And guess who that was? If you weren't here, it was Alex Crawford. Because she hadn't personally interviewed him, although she sat through the interview. Anyway, we were able to convince the other two board members to go ahead and accept those nominations, and they were appointed. And having interviewed these people, I was looking for people that were not followers, but were going to represent the members of this community. We all don't always agree. And I'll be the first to tell you, I see Earl Dean is in the audience. Him and I don't agree on an awful lot of things. There's a lot of things that we do agree on. And just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean that you can't get along. And that's been the problem of our association, is that there's this group over here and there's this group over there. And we just can't come together on anything. If we don't get our way, well, we're going to run the other way with it. And that needs to stop. We need to come together as a community, because we continually to tear our community apart. The recall, for those of you that were here for that, we still haven't recovered fully from that. And we had a lot of people that did work on both sides of that action, but that's history, you know. And we need to come together to make a better community for the future. But it's my impression that the current leadership of the board, Alex Crawford, doesn't want to take us in that direction. She says she had no agenda. She still says she has no agenda, but she's sure taking us the way that she wants to go. And she's bringing people on board that march to her drum. And I don't think that's the music the majority of the people want to hear. The decision that the board voted on, that was 3-2 at this last meeting, to provide the 60-day notice for termination of the contract with First Services. I knew that was coming from the start, because she told me. She doesn't like this lady right here. I think this lady right here has done probably one of the best jobs as a general manager since I've been a property owner in this facility, and that's before it ever was turned over to the members. I don't agree, like I said before, with everything that she does. And I tell her when I don't, but I don't get mad at her, you know. But we made the decision, we being the board made the decision a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was, I don't know, to bring in a management company because of the problems that we'd had in the past. You know, how long did we go to have OJT programs and promote within, and we'd have somebody that, you know, tries to run this facility that don't really know what they're doing. And it's just, you can't do that. And then that goes for a while, we get rid of that and bring somebody else in. No continuity at all. That's one of the worst things that you can have when a new board comes in. You know, until we had First Services, it was like, okay, we'll see you. And you, well, what am I supposed to do now? And it's like, they don't know. So you spend the first 6 months or so spinning your wheels just to get your feet on the ground. They made a big mistake, I feel, in their decision to send this or provide this 60-day notice. And as John mentioned, that this thing about the agenda, I'm a stickler for doing things in accordance with the rules, regulations, the statutes that we have. Florida Statute 720 is very clear about the way you're supposed to hold meetings and conduct business, and Robert's Rules of Order too. If 720 or our current bylaws don't cover it, then you're supposed to go with Robert's Rules of Order. Our current board president has her own idea on how things are supposed to be done, and that's basically how she's been trying to do things. The contract with First Services was not on the original draft that was posted to provide the draft of the agenda to provide notice to the members, which is normally published on Friday prior to 5 o'clock or so, to provide the notice requirement in 720 for the meetings. The change, I'm not sure when it came out, I think it was the day before, was that it was going to be a discussion. I don't have it in front of me, but I don't remember that change to the agenda saying anything about a vote or anything to get people to come to listen to what was going to happen, because I look for that agenda on Friday. If there's a meeting on Tuesday, I look on Friday. And I think the General Manager will tell you if it ain't there, she's getting an email or something from me saying, where's the agenda? I want the agenda. I want to know what our board is going to be talking about. So when I come to a meeting, I can be prepared to discuss the issues. And I had another commitment, but I looked and it said all they're going to do is discuss it. And I said, okay, they can have their discussions and stuff. That means that later on, they'll vote before they take this action. Maybe they're reaching out or they're going to do some type of survey or something. That didn't happen. They voted on it. I have expressed my concern and regret to two of the what I call now followers or Kool-Aid drinkers, the two board members, and like I said, I supported both of them too, about my disappointment in their decision to support the board president's recommendation. One of them didn't respond. The other one said that they would either meet with me or talk over the telephone. And I still plan to do that. So I'm not saying that, First Services is the answer to all of our solutions. But as a professional, I think the way that they have been treated is very inappropriate. It's not professional, and it's not the way you're supposed to do business. If our community as a whole is unhappy with anybody that's providing a service for us, then we need to talk. And we need to say, look, the contract says, ba-do-do-do-do-do, and you're not doing it. So how are you going to fix it? When are you going to fix it? And what can we expect? And what are you going to change? I don't know that that's happened, but I don't think that it has. Because of the people that I know, and Dan Buckner, who's the vice president for the company, is here. I know that in the past, if I've had problems and I take them to him, they get corrected or addressed now. I don't know if our board members, whoever talked to him, and I suspect it was Bill Crouch and Alex Crawford, that they did that they said that we're unhappy with this, you didn't do this, or why haven't you done this, or whatever, to say, okay, how much time you got to fix it or something. And like I said, I wasn't at the meeting, but from what I've read, he was not allowed to address any of the issues or concerns. Most of my feedback that I read about that meeting came from the article in the paper, and I have no reason to disbelieve any of that information. Some of it's quotes, and I'll bet you I could go listen to the tapes, and that's exactly what was said. It was said in there that the majority of the members support that decision. Well, I reached out to over 1,000 members in my network to just ask the question, were you asked? I know I wasn't asked whether I supported it or didn't support it. And of all the people that I asked, nobody came back. There's people that, say, yeah, we should get rid of First Services or whatever, and that's fine. But were you asked? And so I'll just ask from the people in this room here, if you were asked, or no, let's see. Let me ask you, if you were not asked, what your position is to terminate that contract or not terminate the contract, please raise your hand. Okay. I highly suspect that nobody was asked. There's a small group of people that are the board followers, or a couple of members of the board followers, that they may support it, you know, and that's fine. You know, there's a group of 10, 20, 100, 500, whatever it is. But I'll bet all of you sitting in here, if you go and you ask the people that's in your cell out there, hey, how many, were you asked what you thought about this, or do you like them, or don't like them, or whatever? Not a word. They never heard anything. The only thing they heard is if you're like me and you reach out to your people and try to keep them informed on what's going on in our community. So that to me made it wrong. And I think we as a community, you know, we need to step forward and let our voice be heard. And that's all that I ever ask about anything. I'm not right on everything, and I'll be the first to tell you that, but we need to voice our opinions. And if they're going to say that the majority support the decision, then at least the majority of the people should have been asked. And even if they don't come back, just like we have our elections, and a very small percentage of the people return their ballots. You know? Okay, that's how you get to provide your input, is return the ballot or answer the question. So I think our board is, the majority of our board, 3 members, are marching to the wrong drum. And I don't think they'll change. You know, this is more people that they get to show up at a regular board meeting here today. And if you come to a regular board meeting, you'll know that I am almost always there voicing my concerns if I have them, and normally I have them. And a lot of people say that I probably say too much. But if you would please show up and voice yours, then I don't have to say anything, please. So what I'm asking for, what I'm recommending too, and I guess I need to weigh in on this, the erosion issue and what they originally were going to do at this meeting today, which I felt was wrong. I'm a former government director of safety and occupational health, and I'm very, very aware of what requirements, statutes are out there pertaining to safety and occupational health and environmental issues, and especially when you start getting close to wetlands and stuff. And at the board meeting, when after this committee had been appointed and they come up and said we want $50,000 to go and spend down here to do some work, I come up to this podium and I said to the board, I said, I highly recommend that you get an engineer, certified engineer, to come in and sign off on what we're going to do is in fact legal and appropriate to address the issue. And the chairperson of that committee said, I don't need no engineer to tell me how to move dirt from here to there. And 3 of the board members bought that hook, line, and sinker. I know you need an engineer. They didn't listen. They didn't want to hear that. They approved the money. It's gone. More mistakes seem to happen like that because they don't listen to the people that know. They had an engineer, a professional engineer, on that committee, but this other work that they were going to do, they didn't involve him in it. Why is that? It just doesn't make sense. You know, that committee that made these recommendations, if you're a committee, you're supposed to have meetings. You publish an agenda, you invite the members to attend and stuff, and you document what's discussed and what action you're going to recommend to the board. You don't make the decisions. A committee is not supposed to make a decision. A committee makes a recommendation to the board, and then based on that, and then the input from the members, then the board makes a decision. That's not how this particular committee has been functioning, which I think is a mistake. I'm not going to lead an effort to do anything, but I will be right there riding along somebody that's willing to do that. And that's what we need, is somebody to stand up and carry the guide on. That it's my perception that this board, unless people in this room, you go to these board members and you let them know, and you talk to your other friends and residents in the area, let them know what these people are doing or what they're not doing. Let their voice be heard. Because if it's not, they'll just continue to do that. I'm a little disappointed too in that we've got a young man that's on the board, and you know, we've had less than 6 meetings already, and he's starting to phone in. I understand he just changed a job and stuff, but I specifically asked the question of every candidate that I've ever asked, do you have the time? I asked them how much time you think's involved in that. Did I ask that question, Ken? Yeah. Because I know what's involved. Like I said, I haven't been on the board, but I've been around enough of the board members and the actions and the committee work and what goes on in our community to know what's involved. You don't need board members down here all the time, which is what we have right now. That's why we have a management company to do the job. But we have board members that's what they want to do. They want their fingers in everything, and they don't want to, they exclude them, which is wrong. It's not what we're paying them for. I'm going to petition the board to reconsider that decision. If they are unhappy with their performance, then tell them, we're unhappy with your performance because of whatever it is. Now, I was told, and I haven't had the opportunity to validate this, that an offer was made, and I'm not sure the wording of it, to continue the contract but replace the general manager. Is that? No? And I have that in writing from a board member.
They talked about that at the last board meeting, but nobody really responded to the question.
And
that's
I think
not business, that's personal.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean you, I mean
yeah.
threat.
Yeah. And I saw some of that early on in working with the board president on some issues. And it's a shame when it comes to something like that, because this is a very professional lady over here. And I think it would be a true asset for us to leave. I'm not happy, and they know, and I've told them some things I think they need to do, and they're not keeping the members informed of stuff. I like to know, I like reports, and I like to see stuff that says we did this, we didn't do that, that there was a statement in the newspaper about that, I guess for investments, that's one of the reasons that we hired him. And that we have a lot of money laying around different places and stuff. And that prior to First Services, we were making $3,000 a year in interest or something like that. Is that
$2,500?
Okay, $2,500. And since First Services took over, now it's 10 grand or something.
Yeah, more.
Okay.
More.
Well,
23.
but my point is that, okay,
They've helped
maybe
us.
we should be making more, but we're making more than we were before. So that's a good thing. But if you're not happy because we're not making them up, well then tell them. But I would think that means that we're willing to accept more risk, so that you got to balance that stuff off.
Billy.
And they only want to they only want to say what they see as the bad things, and nothing good. Have you ever heard any of the current board members talk about any of the good stuff? The good stuff that First Services and our employees are doing. First Services is being blamed for our employees have health insurance. And it's, correct me if I'm not wrong, but I guess for a number of years, it's covered 100% of the health insurance. And that's a good deal for employees. Well, they were going to talk about changing it to something less than that, that's fine. But you don't, right in December before Christmas, go in and say, oh, by the way, bam, we're going to cut whatever it is. It should be, yeah, we're going to do this, going to make changes, but it takes effect somewhere down the road and stuff. But it's just, they're not doing the right thing, I don't think. So I'll sit down and shut up.
Billy, I have a couple of things I'd like to say with reference. Number one, no, I want to, thank you, I had my time at the microphone enough, and I think I got a loud enough voice. Number one, the reason they want to, these three would like to replace the GM is because she is not a yes person. She researches everything, and she did this previously, and she is on her toes, and they cannot push her around, and she will not buckle underneath, and that they want to replace her with somebody that is willing to say yes to you, and I'll go along with whatever the board wants. And that's not what a GM is supposed to do. She is supposed to, or he, supposed to look out for all the association and everyone, and I feel that's what our current GM does. And number two, if you put together a petition, I'd like to be the first one to sign it.
You have to get in line.
Earl, I don't want to put you on the spot. Earl, you were at the meeting, you heard what was said, what was discussed, and I know we disagree on this issue, so would you like to address this group? Let your voice be heard, Earl.
My voice was heard. The voice was heard.
Come on up.
Are you coming up? Or? I said no. No, all right.
Go ahead, Reverend.
Thank you, Chief. First, my name is Jim Ross. I have been such a happy camper over here in this place, and I was not aware of some of these issues. I would just like to make very succinctly a few points in terms of this. First of all, everybody, I think all of us do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. Agreed? And I think oftentimes when it comes to conflict, we do not look at things, we look for things. Agreed? I think we do. And what little expertise I have is not only in ministry but in conflict resolution. And it seems to me that in an imperfect world, there are no perfect solutions, and they're not. But I want to be on record as being very affirming of the staff of this place, of the spirit that I have found here, and if there's some way that I can help with this, I'll be happy to do so. I think oftentimes we do not look at the whole picture. It's like this guy told me one time, he said, all Indians walk single file. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, the two I saw did. And so oftentimes we need that fullness of perspective that I hear coming from here. And the closing thought is this: silence is golden, but sometimes it's yellow. And I think those of us who are affirming, not perfection, because you won't find it in me at all, but who are affirming of this present staff, that we should speak up and be willing to participate in this process. I want to thank Jean Tasic for this speech that she gave me. Thank you very much. Was that all you asked me to say?
I hadn't seen him in 2 weeks.
Rod Danner, 6661 Fairmont. Y'all gonna get tired of hearing my voice with this cold. Billy did better than I did. I sent each of the board members individually an email, pardon me, with my objections to not only the decision to terminate the first service contract, but by the manner in which that business was conducted. There was an agenda out, the first agenda that Billy addressed, and then only 2 days before the meeting, that was added. And it was added as a discussion, not as a vote. And during the discussion, the board president spat out a whole series of quite outrageous numbers that were totally unsubstantiated. And she offered nothing to verify those numbers whatsoever. So in my email to the board members, I also requested a PowerPoint presentation that would verify these numbers, that supposedly it'll save us $250,000. Now, where in the world did that number come from to drop first services? And I'm a relative newcomer, according to some of the folks. I've only been here 11 years, but this outfit's running smoother than it ever has in the time that I have been here. And I think that Alex Fambry and First Services has done a good job. And yes, it costs us money, but you get what you pay for sometimes, and sometimes you don't, which is, may be the case with this other project. And as John mentioned, if First Services has been allowed to do their job and be involved in this contract that was developed with Brown Hauling, things might not have gone the way they have, and we might not be in the fix we're in now. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm supportive of First Services, and Gina has to get behind me to sign that petition. But people need to be heard, and Alex Crawford did say that the majority of members want this, and where that came from, I have no idea. I have not found anybody. I do know of people that support terminating the contract, but I don't know anyone that was asked that question, as Billy said. So where that came from, I don't know. And I do encourage you to make your wishes known, because we've been through a whole succession of CAMs, most of whom have been abject failures in one form or another. And you have board changes every year, and you can't turn around and have a CAM change every year, every 2 years. And what are we going to get for what they want to pay? Some kid that was just out of college and just got their CAM license, or worked a couple of years, and 2 years does not a professional make. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's about all I have to say. And I also, no, it's not. And, during that meeting, I was at that meeting. Unfortunately, Billy wasn't there. And this is nothing against Earl, because everybody knows where Earl stands as far as First Service is concerned.
You don't know how.
No, he doesn't, 'cause he
Well,
changed it.
I know what you said.
Think you do.
I know what you said.
You think you do.
And I know that you were the only
what they
one
asked you.
that was invited by the chair from the floor. You were on the floor, you didn't request to speak. You were asked to speak. Now, is that not true? That is true, isn't it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, well, I do. Very distinctly, because it was already known what, maybe perhaps not what Earl was going to say, but that he was a supporter of that. So that's the wrong thing to do. And the other thing is, that's a pretty important decision as far as membership is concerned. And you got one member who was there by telephone, and half the time during the meeting they'd say, "Are you there, Ryan?" "Oh, well, let's call him back. Let's call him back." So how do we know how much of that discussion that was held only by the chair he actually heard before the vote was conducted? But they wanted him there for that vote, by golly, because they knew which way that was going to go. And then I also understand, now perhaps Dan can verify this, but were you given a letter at the end of that meeting about that? That was already in writing. What does that tell you? That was a predetermined vote.
They had been having secret meetings is what it is.
Exactly, out of the sunshine. So,
Maybe Dan would like to talk.
would you like to talk, Dan? Come
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
Everybody's heard enough of me. Sandy just told me to shut up.
You don't look like Dan.
No, I know.
Boy, you've changed.
The story keeps getting worse, and what I want to do is give you a little bit of information before Mr. Buckner speaks. I have to tell you, I have been concerned since I joined the board. And the only reason I opted to join the board is the threat of receivership. And that receivership had 30 days to make a quorum. 30 days, that's not long. And unfortunately, Holy By the Sea does not necessarily react quickly. Receivership, I looked up, we, the members, would have had to pay an attorney, court costs, and the receiver. Do you know how much a receiver costs? court-appointed receiver, $150 to $300 an hour, and that receiver could have decided to retain first service, we would have been paying double. That's why I decided to join. Now, am I sorry that I made this decision? You betcha. This has been quite a ride. And I will tell you, when I was being interviewed by Ms. Crawford, she asked me how I felt about first service. And even though I had been active in the community for many years, I had stepped back because of what Billy Neal said. A lot of work by a committee presented to the board, and the board dismisses it. So I decided to step back. Ms. Crawford asked me on the phone during the interview how I felt about first services. I said, if, capital I-F, we were to sever the contract, I would need to be fully informed. I did not know Alex Fanbrick. Although, 2 months previous, at least 2 months previous, I was tired of the rumors that I had heard. I do read the opposite. I do look at Facebook. So I made an appointment with Mr. Dan Buckner and had a list of questions for him. I didn't come see Alex Crawford first. I went to her boss.
Alex Fanbrick.
Oh, sorry. It's very confusing, Alex Fanbrick. I went to her boss, and he answered all of my questions and said to me, would you like me to put it in writing? I said, yes, please. When I got on the board, I decided I was going to spend some time here and make my own decision about our general manager and what our general manager did and what the scope of the work was, and look around the facility and see how I felt it looked. I think it looks cleaner than it's looked in many years. Okay, now, when I say the story gets worse, when I said to Ms. Crawford that I would find out about first service, and if indeed the board made the decision to sever the contract, we would have to have all our ducks in a row. And I said we would need a list of everything that would need to be done, and it would have to be pre-done. Has anybody heard anything about a replacement? Has anybody heard anything about any kind of general manager? Or is this going to be board managed? I don't know. I can tell you additionally that I was asked to make a list and to give the list to the president. I did make a list, but I did not provide my list to the president. I have been privileged to an email in regard to what this board wants to do to sever the contract. It's abysmal. It is poorly written. The things they're asking to do are inappropriate. If we sever this contract and go the way this board is looking to go, our community will fall into chaos. I can tell you that for sure. Additionally, I can tell you, I talked to Sandy Kent, I'm very concerned about the reputation that Holly by the Sea has in Navarre. We have been chaotic forever. If we can't get this fixed, this is going to affect our home values. This is going to affect what Mr. Neal said about how we all get along. We are divided. And you need to know, in my opinion, your board is not taking care of business and taking care of our members. We have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of all of our members, not just some.
Rebecca, will you address Mr. Danner's request for a PowerPoint? Would you just tell the audience?
I have a new computer, or relatively new. My daughter talked me into going to an Apple, so I'm learning a whole new system. I have come up with a PowerPoint presentation, not, I guess, what you were specifically asking for, Mr. Danner. You were asking for some information PowerPoint in regard to the $250,000 we've saved. I believe that this debacle is going to cost us a fortune, an absolute fortune, to replace systems, Anyway, I have a rough draft of a PowerPoint that I'm working on with Alex Fambray that I would like to present at a town hall meeting, and it's going to be some of the facts of how costly this would be. I don't have a date yet, and it's only a draft, but if you're interested in looking at the draft, I'll make it available after our meeting.
That's very useful, I think. I also requested that we get some verifications of the numbers that the president was using at that meeting, which I think were pulled out of thin air, quite frankly.
I agree.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who I have not met yet, I apologize for that, but my name is Dan Buckner, and I'm the Senior Vice President here for the Gulf Coast region with First Service Residential. I appreciate the opportunity to have a few minutes of your time today. I don't have any notes. I don't really have an agenda. I just kind of want to speak from the heart today, if that's okay. Bear with me if it sounds like I'm rambling a little bit, but there's just some things that, from my perspective, that I've seen going on, and I think it's worth talking about at this time. I think all of us could probably say we've been through bigger things or tougher things in our life than gaining or losing a contract. I know I've certainly spent a lot of time thinking about that aspect of it recently from the business perspective and what that means. In the grand scheme of things, I moved off of that pretty quick, because what you have going on here is more about, there's plenty of acts I can get over, and there's plenty of actions that I can look past in life, but when I look at the intent of some of these actions, it's pretty darn scary. And it should scare you as members of this great community. When you get to the intent and you see what follows after that, it scares me from a humanity standpoint. It scares me from doing right by your neighbor, and the fact that things like this I just don't think should go on. Holly OC is more than a community to us. It's a city, pretty much. I mean, let's face it, this is a big time business we're running here. You know, there's close to 5,000 homes. There's tons of facilities. You have many great amenities. There's a huge staff here. This is a big deal. You know, this is a lot more than association management or community management. It takes a huge effort by many, many people to make a property of this size function. That's just the way we see it. It's an honor for us to serve out here. Do I want to stay? Do I want our team to stay? First Service? Absolutely. I don't have any problem letting anybody know that. But for me, this took a whole new turn when you encounter so many untruths and so much misinformation. Then it leads me to a time of reflection, to where I've been through this. I've been in this business now for 12 years. And I've probably interacted or dealt with over 12 to 1,500 board members. I've never seen anything like this in my 12 years. Yet at the same time, I have an open opportunity right now as the leader of this region to walk away from it. That thought hadn't crossed my mind, nor will it. Because to me, it's moved on, as I said earlier. This is more about doing the right thing. And this is more about people with a good heart and with good intent being the leadership of a city here and a great community. And that's what's been dominating my thoughts lately that I wanted to share with you today. You simply, you know, Alex Fambry's not perfect. I'm far from it, I can tell you that, absolutely. Everybody in our company makes mistakes. That's a fact. There's been plenty of instances instances where Mr. Ward and I disagreed. But we ended our conversation moving forward to better things for Holly by the Sea. Not her agenda, not my agenda. The greater good for the greatest number, because that was the intent of what was going on. Same thing with other board members that I've worked with in the past. You know, you can't, and some comments have been made today about you get to hear certain sides of the story, or you get to look at what you see, or maybe that's not reality, or this or that. You know, from our standpoint, we manage 120 associations here. You know, when I got here, we had 18. You know, we had 20-something employees. Now we have 350. You know, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to draw an analogy to say that you can't grow that much if you're doing the wrong thing. If you're price gouging your customers, if you're providing lousy service, if you're discriminating who you serve and speaking out of both sides of your mouth, that growth is not only going to go away, but your reputation is going to be horrible. So, sure, we make plenty of mistakes, but hopefully we hire the right kinds of people that have a servant attitude and a servant heart, that want to do what it takes to make it right. And they want to keep taking steps in a positive direction to move things forward. Those are the kind of people that I want on my team. And those are the kind of people that I'm certain you have here at Holly by the Sea as we speak today. I'm not going to single anybody out. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just simply going to say that we want to stay, for sure. That's a fact, and we want to stay in a big way, because we feel like there's some aspects to where we've been able to move the needle in a significant way for this community, and there's more stuff on the horizon. I would be happy to sit down with any individual or group of people at any time and have a civil conversation about that, and let's go through, you know, what's happened since day one, if anybody has any interest in that. Again, I don't have any issues admitting our faults either, and the ways that we've slipped and times that we haven't done well. And there's times that some individuals or some board members have pointed that out to us because they care about you and your community. And so do we. And so we listened and we responded and we changed things that needed to change. And we moved forward to try to do the best thing for Holly by the Sea. That's our intent. That's what we stand for as a region and as a company. And as long as I'm in the role that I'm in, that's going to be the main thing that drives us, regardless of anything else. Because at the end of the day, I got to be able to lay down in my bed at night and say, you know what, I learned a few things, I made a few mistakes, but we didn't sacrifice our integrity, we didn't sacrifice our morals, and we didn't do anything behind closed doors that we shouldn't have done. So I will say, at this point, maybe for some of y'all that I haven't met, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Nothing off limits for me. So I got nothing to hide. If you want to fire away, fine. If not, then I'll sit down and give the podium to somebody else.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
what
sir.
is your plan from this point forward, assuming you don't lose it?
I think our immediate plan is to keep fighting.
That's general. It's a very, very specific thing. I had someone suggest that there should be a 5-year plan. Do you have a 5-year plan?
We do, in that we have aspects of that are already being played out, and we've also is a continual work in progress.
Is that something that the general members can see?
Of course.
And where is it now?
Alex?
We're working with the Long Range Planning Committee. Beth here is the chairman of that, but we can give you the outline either electronically or maybe publish it in the newsletter with Sandy Kemp.
Okay, so that started, since that started about a month ago?
No, it started when the company came on board. When First Service was originally contracted, the preparation of that plan started at that time.
Okay, would it be possible to request a status as it is right now?
Of course.
To be given to whoever?
Sure.
about doing that, and I don't know what the rules are. Something has to change in that area. That's why you're not involved in some things. Alex doesn't get involved in the, apparently you got a bad contract running in the back end. This type of, that's not supposed to happen.
I agree.
And I don't know how, I don't know if it involves you, it certainly involves Alex, as to how that's supposed to happen. The board members, the board has to decide that that's what they want to do. And right now, it seems to be, I have these 3 or 4 things I'm going to do, and I'm going to ram it through and see what happens. And that, this is a big enough operation, as you mentioned, to not be able to do that. So if we can get some kind of a plan as to what you're doing, and you know what was claimed on the newspaper, last month's newspaper, all of that needs to be refuted very officially. The PowerPoint, I think that's a good thing, except it's got to be out there. People got to make, they're going to have to be forced to make a decision whether they want to keep the board that exists.
Sure.
Whether they want to keep you, what do they want to do? We're not dealing in specifics. It's kind of like watching the presidential election process. They just say anything they want and go do whatever they want. That can't be the case. We're not big enough to have that kind of unlimited money.
But Richard, understand we serve at the pleasure of the board, so we can present our plan, but the board has to adopt it and pass it and vote. It's like the projects we bring to them for approval. If they don't vote to approve the proposal, the repair doesn't get done. So we need a partnership attitude between management and the board to move things forward in this plan that we've created. Otherwise, it's just a plan, like the committee work that Rebecca talked about or that Billy talked about. Committees put together all this effort and present something, and then it dies on the vine. So,
okay, I thoroughly agree with what you're saying. You know, I don't know what the rules are of what you're doing. I know Beth was fighting hard to have some things done by the book, and all of which she had to leave the board. That kind of thing should not be happening, and it's basically on the president. However they were appointed to get to that location has to control that, but not be the dictator. And that's what we have right now.
that's exactly right. That's what we have right now.
Yes, sir.
I've asked for feedback or data from First Services from the start, like a progress report on when First Services first come on board. It was a presentation in this room right here, talked about, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do all these things we're going to do. And there was a timeline and stuff that said this will take us a month or 3 months or whatever the timeline was. And I suspect maybe the board has been provided feedback or status on that in the past. But I know me as a member, and I suspect all the members have not. So how can I judge that First Services is doing a good job, doing a fair job, doing a poor? Even if it's to the point of, yeah, when we took this project on, we thought this would take us 6 months. But it's a little bit bigger than what we thought, you know, and we stumbled, and this was new, and this broke, and whatever it is. So that didn't happen. But our plan to get there is, so this is the date. So you have a continuous update of this is the status, this is all the good stuff. And this good stuff is like the investments when we started. If we were getting, you know, we have X billions of dollars over here and we're only making $2,500 a year on it. Well, now we're making $10,000 a year on it. That's a good thing, and that ought to be out there, and everybody should know that. Not that this thing about the estoppel fee, whatever it is, and that doesn't affect a person unless you are buying or selling a house. It's my understanding anyway. And those fees and stuff, but we're making money from that. So is that a bad thing? Well, there's people that's trying to sell that as that's a bad thing. And maybe it is. But educate the membership or the people on the good things that First Services is doing.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Okay, since I was in at the very beginning, you're absolutely right. I think First Service didn't know what they were getting into right away, and there were like 3 or 4 months at the very beginning that was pretty rocky, and they had to, we're very, very unique situation, homeowners, and they had never seen anything like this, And it took y'all, oh no, Sandy. It took y'all a long time to realize how unique we really were. And I think that's why we got our 6 months free of management, because they realized they bit off more than they could chew, and that we were so big and so unique that they'd never seen anything like us before, and it took them a long time to learn us, and we've come a long way. We've come a very long way, and to throw that out at the knowledge that First Service now has and the amount of help that they have given us for the last year, I mean, it's just incredible to throw it all away and start all over again. I've been here 15 years, and I've seen how many CAMs have come and gone, and I've seen the chaos that we have been in. And the current board has lied to us time and time again. They have literally just lied to us. Sorry.
And one other thing that has been a thorn from the start, even before, is the website. The First Services website for this HOA is a piece of crap. I've said it. I don't know anybody that's...
How do you really feel?
Published in the newspaper. But that is a big thorn in the side of everybody that I've talked to. Problem with First Services. They want a user-friendly, up-to-date, current information package that they can access to find out what's going on, what's being done, or is that true or something? Something to go to, and it's not there. It's not, I mean, I know it's probably the First Service standard, everybody gets the same thing, but it's not user-friendly, and people just don't use it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
This has been a thorn in my side also, and I've talked to Alex
Same
Lamberty.
thing?
Yeah, website.
But she's gonna help us fix it.
To me, the website, okay, granted, you guys have a generic website that you use for all of your stuff. Most of it's condos, so it says unit instead of home. A lot of people don't like that. It's just offensive to them. But the thing with the website, that is the major communication to Holly by the Sea. I think most people would use a website to find information. Right now, the one we have is very unnavigable. It's not easy to find anything on it.
So,
I've talked to Alex several times. She told me that your IT people down in South Florida are trying to come up with a user-friendly website. I don't know what the status is of it yet, but even the planning committee, that is our #1 priority, is to have a new website. Whether you guys stay with us or not, we want a new website, period.
Okay. So the website's not very good.
Putting it mildly.
So I will say this, Alex is correct, that we have sent the request into IT along with a list of feedback that says, you know, same thing, unit versus home, user-friendly, hyperlinks, click drop-down screens, all of that stuff that we've sent down to them to say, here's what we're gonna have to do, period, for Holly by the Sea, for them to draft a website that's gonna be exactly as you said, user-friendly. If for some reason they don't come back with something that is that meets the standards that you're looking for.
My question is, why is it taking so long? I talked to Sandy Kemp about this same issue, and she said she could have a demo of something I showed her done in no time. Yet you guys have had this information for over a year, and it's still nothing.
I'll follow up on that. You're right, it shouldn't take that long.
I mean, I've sent samples.
If
demos.
I need to, you know, I'll raise my voice as far up the flagpole as I need to. That's unacceptable time frame.
I think most of the people in Holly by the Sea want to see something that is Holly by the Sea.
Right.
You know, we want to see, we want to own it. right now, what we see, I wouldn't claim that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, part of the problem, if you remember from the previous meeting that I went to 2 meetings ago, Ms. Kemp was attempting to do certain things, and basically the board wanted to fire her. So, I mean, it's a little bit tough to improve on things if you're constantly firing people. I mean, it doesn't work.
Well, me personally, I think Holly by the Sea is too big. We're a $1 million facility. We need to be ran like a business. We need third-party contractors to do stuff so that when we have turnovers year after year after year, they're still they're still there.
Dan, can I?
Same thing.
And that's what, oh, I'm
I've got
sorry.
something that
Yeah.
pertains directly to you and to that, okay?
Yes, sir.
You actually have a contract right here that basically says they're supposed to do that. And it says designation, the association shall designate in writing a single individual who shall be authorized to deal with first services on any matter related to this contract. In the absence of any such designation, the president of the association will have the authority. The association shall not interfere, nor permit, or allow, or cause any of its officers, directors, or members to interfere with first services in the performance of the duties and exercises in this contract. What we're having right now is you've got a board that's trying to completely throw out anything that Alex wants to do, anything that Dan wants to do, and it's ridiculous. What you've got, I looked up the numbers this morning. Less than 600 people voted in this election, the last election we had. 377 people. 377 out of all of those people voted for Alex, okay? That's 12.5% of the total membership. That doesn't sound like any kind of a mandate to me. What it sounds like is most of the people were happy enough with the way things are going that they didn't decide to even get bothered. So we don't have a huge problem according to most of the people. You've got a very small group of people that have issues, and they're acting as though they represent all 4,718 lot holders, which they do not. Okay? One last thing that I will say, and then I'm going to ask Yvonne to say something, is right now, we have letters out to all of you homeowners, and you've got a thing that says you owe them $347, and you got to mail it in by January 31st, right? Everybody's got one. Well, you will get one if you're a property owner. Okay, if you don't have one, you soon will. Well, maybe not, because the people who are supposed to get it to you won't be here. But those letters are out, money is going to start going in. Those checks are going to go to a lockbox in Miami. And for the month of January, First Services is very kindly going to take that money in. They're going to write it down. They're going to keep records of who paid. They're going to do all of that kind of stuff. And for those of you who are not aware, we're talking about $1.7 million plus or minus a few bucks. Okay? So, February 1, there's a whole bunch of checks going to be going to a lockbox in Miami. Who's going to empty it? Who's going to take those payments out and post them? Who's going to keep track of all the money we collected and all the money we still have to collect? Who's going to do that? These guys aren't retired.
Board president can do it.
Good. Well, that would be nice. Chelsea here drive to Miami and go down there and pick up all those checks and put them in a. That's my point. I told Alex this a long time ago when I first got started in this. I don't know whether First Service is the best option or not. But you don't fire people until you got somebody else to replace them. That's the dumbest thing you can do. You just can't go ahead and say, I don't like Alex, so go away, and then we'll worry about all the problems later. If I was going to fire these guys, I would have had 3 people that could do their job lined up 3 months ago. If you're going to do it, that's the way you do it. You don't go ahead and wake up one morning and say, hey, let's bring it up in the middle of a meeting that nobody's going to, and that'll be a good idea to vote on it. That's crazy.
John, I would just share with you a response because I addressed that particular issue. And quote, I assure you, there is a transition plan that we have worked many hours on, making sure that it is the best plan.
And who wrote that?
A board member.
And has that board member bothered to publish that plan?
Well, you're not supposed to ask questions like that.
Oh, has anybody that's part of that plan walked into Alex's office and said, hey, I'm the guy or the lady that's going to replace you? How about if we talk about how I'm going to get all those checks out of that lockbox in Miami?
I just got this at 7:18 this morning.
Perfect.
I will respond to it because that's a question I would ask. I'd like to see that plan.
Well, there's more than that.
A lot of members would like to see that.
There's more than that. Think about this, okay? We got into a hassle over we would or would not reduce the employee benefits, okay? It was clear that some of the board members that were voting on that hadn't even read the contract because as written, we're already got a charge in our contract that goes through 2016 covering that very issue, okay? So voting to cut back their part of the benefits doesn't put a dime in Holly by the Sea's pocket. It just takes money out of the employees' pockets. The next best thing is not only are they going to go to 75%, but on February 1st, all of those employees that do not go to work for First Services someplace else will no longer be employees of First Services. So not only will they be paying 25% for their employee benefits, they will have no employee benefits. So all of those happy people you see out in the front desk, if they come back on February 1, are going to be contributing about $100 a month out of their own pockets, and most of them don't make more than $12 an hour. That ought to make them real happy. The point is, this thing is a mess. I've told you 2 problems there are. There's 50 more. And the upshot of this whole meeting is to get something started to stop this train wreck. I mean, that's the whole deal. If a future board wants to get rid of First Services, fine. But do it right. Make sure that you dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, and that the association isn't going to go down the sewer just because you don't like Alex. That's crazy. So, I mean, I can't say it any stronger than that. We're headed for a train wreck, and apparently some people haven't really thought that part through.
So what can we do?
Well,
Have a recall vote. Too late.
okay. Let's talk about what you can do. A recall vote takes too long, takes forever. The last recall, Rebecca and I disagree. I say it took 8 months, she says it took 12 months. But either way, 8 to 12 months is all the damage is done. If it takes 8 months to do a recall, even if you did it in 6 months, all the damage is done. So recall is not possible. Okay? The second thing that you can do is, and probably the shortest term thing that you could do, is to prevail upon at least one board member that voted to get rid of the first services to do something else which is in the bylaws, and that would be to replace the president. You can't kick her off the board, but you can take her out of the presidency, and that has been done at least twice since I've been here. Okay? So that is a thing that you can do. You say, what can you do? Bill Couch and Ryan Miller can make that change if they want to. And if enough people contact those two guys and say, you realize what you have done, and you realize what's going to happen, then the thing that could be done is Alice could be asked to move aside. She'd still be on the board. She'd still have her voice. She could say whatever she wanted. But she would no longer be able to dictate the terms of every single agenda, which is what's been happening since I've been coming to meetings again. I'm kind of like Billy and Rebecca and some other people. I'm an old board member, and you kind of get tired, so you go away for a while. Well, unfortunately, I'm back. For whatever that's worth. But I feel very strongly about this thing, and I think that we've got to take some action. The shortest term action is for us to try to influence the two board members that can actually make a difference. Because that's the only way you can get anything done. It could be done at the next board meeting. So you don't have a lot of time, to do it. Now, Miss Crawford might just decide not to have a board meeting. Well, you don't need it. All you need to do is call a board meeting and have 3 people show up. Okay? If these 2 people and one person that had some courage would show up, you can fix this. That is the single fastest way to do it. And then what you do is you reverse the vote. And again, I said, I don't care if a future board or even the same board decides they want to get rid of these guys. Do it right. Don't do it the way we're doing it now. This is crazy. So I'm willing to stick my neck out there. You ask Billy if anybody would do it, I'm standing here. Okay? But if anybody else is here ready to do it, you got 10 friends, call them and tell them to call Miller. Tell them to call Couch and tell them that they made a mistake. Okay? The other thing, one of the things that these guys are being pretty nice about, they can be really nasty if they wanted to. I wrote a memo to Rebecca, and I can tell you that this current board has broken at least 2 sections of this contract. They could sue you for, for failing to live up to the contract if they wanted to. I haven't heard them say they're going to do that. I'm just saying they could if they wanted to be nasty. The other thing they can do is just walk out at the end. There's nothing that says they have to work with whoever is supposed to be coming in to work with these guys. They're not going to do it. They could if they wanted to. So again, I'm back to that's the fastest way to do it. That's the best way to do it. And the only way it's going to happen is if you people kind of talk to your neighbors and your friends and get them to agree and get them to put some pressure on these two guys. Because that, to me, that's the best way to do it. I mean, we tried other things. I'll tell you, in open forum, I actually filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office. Now, those things take forever. You know, I'm still waiting to hear back from somebody. Maybe I'll hear back from them, maybe I won't. I personally believe that the Browns hauling contract was fraudulently awarded. That's my opinion. May not stand up in a court of law. I don't know, but I'm willing to try to get somebody to look at it. The other thing, and I don't know how it would work, but I don't believe that the vote to get rid of First Services was done correctly. So, we could demand that they renotice the meeting and they have to do it. If they want to still go ahead, then they have to schedule another meeting, put it on the agenda, and have another vote. And the only thing that does for you is that just starts the clock over again. But you could do that. If at the January meeting you said that vote was no good, then they could go ahead and redo it again, but then you'd be talking about March and maybe you could get something done.
Who would determine whether the vote was good or not from the board's point of view?
First Services could certainly challenge it.
Well, they should.
Yeah, but if we could get to one or both of the other board members before that happened.
That would be, the best thing would be if, as a group, we could collectively express to them that they are not operating in the best interest of the association and they are not doing something that the vast majority of the members want them to do. That's where they're coming with a misconception, and that's why I mentioned how small a vote Ms. Crawford got. Because they're laboring under the impression, because she told a bunch of people in a meeting I was at, she talked to 1,200 people and she knew what the people wanted. Well, 377 voted for her. Where the hell are the rest of the 1,200?
The 1,200 is basically, she claims the number of houses or properties that she visited when she was walking door to door.
I understand that.
She also lied to a lot of those people too.
Well, let's not get into what she said or didn't say. The point is, 1,200 people didn't vote for her, okay? By her own admission, the majority of people she talked to didn't vote for her. So how can she be telling you that she's speaking for the majority of the community? That makes no sense. Just from a mathematical point of view, you know, if